Okay, today we're going to clean greenware, so I thought I'd run through the tools, explain what they're used for. This is a cleaning tool. They usually have a hooked end and either a triangle end or a spear end. I'm not particular, I'll use either one. What I usually do, you see I have more than one here. Whenever they get dull, I'll just throw them away. They're not that expensive, so I'll throw, when the points get dull, I'll just throw them away and buy a new one, because it's much easier to clean greenware with a sharp one than it is with a dull one. What these are, this is a piece of what they refer to as grit cloth. All this is Scotch-Brite. You can buy this in the grocery store, you can buy it in any home improvement store by the sheet, and then I just cut it into squares and use it as needed. These I've purchased, I've purchased at a ceramic shop. This is basically the same thing as grit cloth, only it's on a piece of, it's made into a stick. This is good to get into small crevices. These come in two sizes. This happens to be the large one, but they come in a smaller size, and they work real well whenever you're trying to get into crevices to smooth down the seams on the greenware. This is a dust brush. This is used to, after you clean your greenware, to dust off the excess dust off of it, because you don't want to put that in your kiln. You try to keep, the dust down in your inside of your kiln. That's what that's used for. These are various stick sponges. These are the stick sponges. What these are used for is, again, to sponge out small crevices where you can't reach with your fingers. It's really good for smoothing down anything that you've made cutouts on, which I'll show you later. That these work real well for that. What this is an elephant ear sponge. This is what you use to sponge off your greenware to smooth down the seam lines after you've cleaned them and smoothed them down with your grit cloth. You can use synthetic sponges if you like, but I prefer the natural sponges, and the elephant ears work really well because they don't hold a lot of water, so you're not making your greenware too soft. Okay, I'm going to show you how to clean on this particular piece of greenware. As you can see, there's a seam line. What that seam line is where the mold has come together. What you want to do is smooth this seam line down as nicely as possible, but being careful not to take away too much of your detail. And it's your personal preference which end of the cleaning tool you want to use. I just use whatever, depending on where I'm cleaning. When I'm cleaning in crevices, I usually use the hook, but on the straight edge way, I will clean with the spear end. So what you want to do is clean this down without trying to preserve as much detail as you can. You smooth it down with your cleaning tool. One important thing that I want to point out that a lot of people don't do, and that I always do, is your pouring hole. Some people don't feel the need to clean this pouring hole, but I always do, because as an instructor told me many, many years ago, that's the difference between somebody saying to you, "Oh, where'd you get that?" and saying, "Oh, I see you made that yourself." So what you want to do is always make sure you clean your seam lines off the bottom, and using your grit cloth, very lightly sanding this and smoothing it out and not leaving any rough edges. Now the grit cloth, once you clean your seam lines down and have them down relatively smooth, they don't have to be perfect, that's what this is for. Then you very gently, and I do mean gently, buff your seam line out. And as you see, very nicely smooths it down till it's nothing left. What you have to remember is what you're dealing with here is dried clay. This is very, very fragile. So you need to be careful to exert a little self-control when you are buffing your seam lines. Too much pressure, your piece will crack or it'll break. So like I said, what you want to do is just get your seam lines down nice and smooth, like that. And once you get your seam lines all cleaned off the entire piece, you want to dust your excess off with your dust brush. And then you take your sponge Dip it in water, which you can add a little vinegar to your water, especially if you're using stains on your piece, because that helps from developing any hard spots. Squeeze the water out of your sponge. You don't want it dripping wet. And then just very lightly sponge over where you've cleaned. As you can see, seam line is gone. Looks perfect. This particular piece is a good example for using this tool. This one won't, these holes are just a little too small, but when you have holes like this, instead of cleaning them with a cleaning tool, that's what this is for. You can get in there and clean and buff that out. This particular piece, it won't fit, but these can be cleaned out with your cleaning tool. And like I said, since the stick won't work, what we're going to do is going to fold your grit cloth up, get a nice corner on it, and just get it in there and smooth it down a little bit until you get your seam line gone. And then that, once again, that's what these are for. This is the perfect tool. Like I said, it's a sponge on a stick, because all it is. And what you do is you just squeeze out the excess water, and then you can just run this in these crevices like this and smooth them right down. That's what these tools were made for. One thing to remember is after you've cleaned your seam and you've sponged it a little bit, if you see a little imperfection while your piece is still damp, do not, and I repeat, do not try to buff it with your grit cloth. Don't touch it with your cleaning tool, because that will make a hard spot. Just wait for it to dry from where you sponged it, and then you can go back and touch it up.